What's up guys, D-Dub's Garage. We're back here again, and on this one we're actually going to do a little bit of Buell repair. I've been having an issue with my Buell. It's killing the battery. So the thing that happens is you'll be riding it and the odometer will actually flicker and the speedometer needle would freak out. It was saying I was doing like 50 miles an hour when I was probably only doing about 15. So obviously the first thing that came to mind for me was, oh, it's probably a charging issue. So we're going to show you guys how to actually diagnose this and then make sure you're replacing the right part or repairing the right part before you go spending a lot of money and time either taking off a primary case or just doing something that you really don't need to do. So let's see if we can help anyone else get their Buells ready to go again. Let's do it. So guys, I cannot actually take credit for knowing this answer myself on how to properly diagnose this issue. So of course I went to the internet. I found this post. It's funny, it's actually anonymous, so I was gonna hopefully give whoever made this reply to a person who had the question about a Buell charging issue, but I can't give them any credit, so I'm gonna put it up on the screen right now for you guys, and I'll read along with you. So the first thing is to check your regulator. Start the bike and put a meter on the battery. You should see about 14 volts. This is a pretty universal thing. Cars are the same way. While the bike is idling or while the car is idling, if you put a digital multimeter up to the car on the battery, it should read about 14.5, maybe 13.8 volts. So that is how you'll know if the bike or car is actually charging, in this case obviously the Buell. And if the bike is not charging, then unplug the wires, go into the regulator, and put the meter leads on the plug going into the regulator and set the meter to volts alternating current, AC. So that is the other voltage setting on your that you should have on your DVOM to check and see if the stator is actually putting out the correct amount of voltage. So with volts AC and those wires hooked up, the bike running with the meter should read somewhere between 30 and 50 volts AC. If you see between 30 and 50 volts AC, then it's your regulator that's shot. If you don't see those numbers, then your problem is most likely the stator. Make sure you check for broken wires, of course, short circuits, etc., before jumping in and spending money on expensive replacement parts. With the help of the internet, we are actually going to go ahead and follow that procedure step by step and see if we can see what's going on with the Buell here. Step one, it's gonna be pretty simple. All you're gonna need is your multimeter and basically just your hand to pull the seat off. So for Buell, it's super easy to remove the seat. There are no bolts or anything. They make it nice for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you where the release is. On a blast, it is right there. And just like that, guys, the seat is off and now we have access to the battery. So we got the multimeter unraveled. And the first thing we're actually gonna do, this is gonna sound a little weird, something that I always like to check just in case because you never know if you have a short in your wires, is you actually just go to resistance. So that's known as ohms. You can see this little symbol right here, looks like an omega. And then something you should do is just quickly take your two leads and touch them together. And you should see very, very low resistance. And that's what we call continuity. So that's just a good start to make sure that your wires are actually gonna be reading correctly and they don't have high resistance. And then for this one, we're going to volts DC. So DC volts has the basically sort of the same look as AC volts, but instead of having that wave little pattern that AC does, DC voltage has a straight line and then a dotted line under it. So that way we know we're checking the right thing right now. We may have to go to AC volts later, but I'll show you guys that. And right now we're just gonna go ahead and start the bike and see if it's charging. So all you gotta do is go ahead and grab your key. And you can go ahead and put it down. So right now, turn that thing to DC volts. Go ahead and check it. little tough when it shakes like this. So, go ahead and show you guys. So, we have got nothing. That explains the issue we were having with our speedometer, and also our other accessories didn't really want to work either. This thing is not charging. So, time to dive a little bit deeper, and we're gonna go to the next step of that procedure. All right guys, so we are going to step 2. If the bike is not charging 12 volts or less, unplug the wires going to the regulator and put the meter leads on the plug going to the regulator and set the meter to volts AC. With the bike running, the meter should read somewhere between 30 and 50 volts AC. The voltage regulator is actually this little module right next to the shock. So here's the plug, not too hard to get at. Go ahead and pull it out, simple as that. There's your plug that goes to the rectifier, and this is your plug from the stator. All right guys, so we got it running. Now we're just gonna go ahead and hook up our leads. We want it on AC voltage. All right, so we got about 46 AC volts. That's great. So that means that our stator is putting out the amount of voltage it should. If this post is right, we're gonna find out. And really, we should just try replacing the rectifier and see what happens. So let's go ahead and do that. So guys, here are all the tools you're gonna need to remove the voltage regulator / rectifier. Just a small 1/4" ratchet. I know not everyone has snap-on, but just a small one with a little extension and a 10mm socket on it. I know you may not have any of those left, but scour the depths of underground or your engine bay and see if you can find one. Then we got just a regular Phillips head screwdriver, nice and simple. Those should be everywhere in your house. And then just a pair of dikes. Step 1 of removing the regulator is to disconnect your battery completely and actually pull it out of the bike. And this is the step where you just need your Phillips head screwdriver. So we're gonna go ahead and take these out. And just like that, our battery's out of the way. So step 2, here we go. That's where you're gonna need this little extension, 1/4" with the 10mm socket on it. All right, so you guys can see it's right there, nice and easy to get at. Just go ahead. This is where the swivel socket helps, or the swivel extension. You go ahead and crack her loose. There you go. It's actually pretty loose on there. And then go ahead and you can just do the rest by hand. It shouldn't be too rusty. If it is, then you may need your ratchet the whole time. But you kind of run out of space with this little box here. So go ahead and take the nut all the way off. And then once you snip those wires, you go ahead and pull this and basically just fish it through the body. It actually comes through this hole where you can see the foot peg mounts are. So what I'd do is just kind of find where it goes. So it's this one, and then pull it down from this side. And just like that, our wiring from the rectifier is clear. So let's move on to step 3. All right guys, step 3, gonna have another set of 10mm heads on these bolts. Let's go take a look at the new part. All right guys, here's our new regulator. It's nice and shiny, and I gotta say, it looks kind of cool. I guess it's from a company called LP2. I didn't know we were talking about an Eminem album here. But it looks good. This I found on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. Apparently it's a factory replacement, even though yes, it does look slightly different than the stock one. And obviously the plugs look like they should be the same. So we're gonna go ahead and throw it in there and see what happens. That the plugs came out this way on the old rectifier, so we're gonna do the same thing with this one. And then also do not forget your ground. If you leave this hanging, we may not have a charging system, it may not even start. So just make sure that that actually gets bolted to the regulator itself. So now that we have that sheath on there, we're gonna go ahead and start feeding the wires through the bike. Here's the long one sitting there. It's gonna go to that terminal right there. And then something I actually did too is I pulled the stator wires up higher here, and then the ones off the rectifier up here as well. That'll actually just make it easier for diagnosis later if we need to. And then also it makes the plug much more accessible. So we're gonna go ahead and plug this one in. We've got everything plugged in and back together. So really now it's time for the moment of truth. I'm gonna go back to volts DC. And then this is handy. The battery terminals have holes in them, so I can kind of just let my leads hang, and that's what'll make contact. So right now it's reading 13. So this battery's got some juice after getting on that tender again. But let's go ahead and start this thing up and see if we fix the problem. Alright guys, just like that, we now have a charging system again. Not too bad a job, definitely worth the money. That regulator I think was about $50. And again, I'll put the link in the description. But now that this thing's ready to rock, I'm taking it for a spin.
Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. Hey, it's too late to try to go contain it. A generation fueled by creation. We live lives on a small screen nation. We control the airwaves, no negotiation. I refuse to think we need saving. Something good will come from creation. And when we think that the world is too anxious, we'll adapt, evolve, survive, and save it. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah.